Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Daniela Lattanzi. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Holistic Health Solutions. Welcome on today's podcast. And today we have a great podcast for you with a great guest and great friends. We have today with us Mr. John Payne. Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, Daniela.
Excellent. Good to see you again. And today we are going to talk about a subject that definitely is very super important in relation to gut health and why this is an imperative for any natural practice. John, first of all, thank you for being here. And it's good to see you. I see very nice background of Arizona weather behind you.
It's
How's the
quite nice, except for in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I understand. I'm sure that is the case. Anyway, so while we're waiting, few people coming in, so welcome everyone. And first of all, thank you for all of you that are going to join us live. Also, thank you for anyone that are going to watch this replay on YouTube later on when we post it. And I know that this is a busy weekend. There is a Memorial weekend coming up. I know that a lot of people are busy trying to wrap up their things before taking off. So, again, thank you for your time and for being with us. So, anyway, John, so first of all, do you want to tell a couple of minutes about yourself and your organizations, your business?
Sure. I've been a researcher in metabolic syndrome diseases for well over 40 years, primarily in type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, all forms of dementia, and Parkinson's disease. And then when the University of Wisconsin actually figured out that autism was primarily a metabolic disorder as opposed to a neurological disease, we got very interested in that. I actually had a personal experience with a young autistic boy that changed how I viewed that entire arena and chose to commit everything my organization does from research. We're just a group of scientists. We've got 93 that are spread around the world. And what we literally, all our research is just based on metabolic diseases and disorders with a focus now on autism. Okay. But gut health in general.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, and thank you again for all your work because I know that is very needed. Talking about that, so I wanted to dive in on the first questions in relation to metabolic dysfunctions, right? So, anyway, so for years, like the discussion, the general discussion has always been that, okay, metabolic dysfunction is primarily driven by diet and lifestyle, which is, I mean, it's not wrong. However, it seems that the narrative recently started changing, and correct me if I'm wrong, where microbiomes and genomics show something deeper from study, right? So considering that you have, all the study things that you have with your scientists, like how does an out of balance gut microbiome act sort of like a spark that ignite insulin resistance upstream? And also, is are the current providers like the chronic illness like from a wrong angle? Like, what's your thought on this?
Well, what you're saying is exactly the shift that practitioners now need to understand. Diet and lifestyle absolutely matter, but they're not the whole story. The gut microbiome is one of the major biological systems that determines how the body responds to food, stress, inflammation, and even blood sugar. When the microbiome becomes imbalanced, then we often see a breakdown in the gut barrier. That can allow inflammatory compounds, especially bacterial endotoxins like LPs, to enter circulation at low levels. Now, this is sometimes referred to as metabolic endotoxemia. Once that inflammatory signal enters the bloodstream, it interferes with insulin signaling and increases systemic inflammation and pushes the body towards insulin resistance. So the spark is not just sugar, it is
Hmm.
inflammation, immune activation, microbial imbalance, and gut barrier dysfunction happening upstream.
Right.
And, I do think many healthcare providers are looking too far downstream. They wait until glucose is elevated, A1C is abnormal, or the patient already has a diagnosis. But by then, the underlying dysfunction may have been building for years and could have been caught earlier. The more advanced clinical question, I think, is not simply what is the blood sugar number? The better question is what is driving the body to lose metabolic control in the first place? And very often, the gut is, the first place we need to look.
Wow. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense because it seems like I mean, that's kind of the spark when you start to have the microbiome imbalance, like, you start to have the whole inflammation start happening, and then can that sort of start the whole cascade of event.
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. Wow.
The gut
Um,
microbiome is increasingly linked to metabolic syndrome issues.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you may already have answered to a degree, but it's funny because you kind of following my thought here. My other question wanted to be like it was in relation to like obviously a lot of our practitioners are doing I mean you have different way of finding these things, but when standard blood panel like fasting glucose or A1C, it seems they're failing to catch this earlier phase of metabolic decay, right? So if that's the case, should the practitioner focus on other marker directly linked to gut inflammations, which then become leaky gut, or what's your idea?
Well, fasting glucose and A1C markers are useful, but most of the time, Daniele, they're late stage markers after the damage has already been done. They tell us when glucose regulation is already breaking down, but they don't always show us the early compensatory phase that the body goes through. In the early stages of metabolic dysfunction, the body can keep glucose looking normal by producing more insulin. Just keeps pumping out more insulin. So a patient can have a normal fasting glucose and a normal A1C, but still be metabolically stressed because the pancreas is working overtime. That's why fasting insulin, triglyceride patterns, waist circumference, inflammatory markers, and other metabolic indicators can be helpful in making a determination in addition to just the A1C and the fasting glucose. From a gut perspective, practitioner, I think, should also be thinking about signs of systemic inflammation. Any kind of gut barrier stress, so poor digestion, chronic bloating, constipation, food reactivity, skin issues, fatigue after meals, and brain fog. And these aren't always captured in a standard blood panel, but initially they can tell the practitioner a great deal. The mistake is assuming that normal labs means normal physiology. A1C it's a snapshot of average glucose exposure, but it does not tell you how much insulin was required to maintain that average. It does not tell you about inflammatory burden. It does not tell you about gut permeability. And also, it doesn't tell you whether the patient is on the road toward metabolic dysfunction. So, yes, the practitioners need to look earlier and broader, I think, and they need to look at metabolic stresses, inflammatory stresses, gut health, and the patient's functional systems. Not just the standard disease markers of fasting blood glucoses and A1C.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That still makes sense. So let's make a scenario here just to play with this concept, right? So let's say that some practitioners is, say, let's say a 7 years old with behavioral challenge at 1 p.m. And then right after 2 p.m., a 45 years old with brain fog and abdominal fat. So how does it work? Like how these two apparently totally disrelated cases, how is these two cases could be driven is by the same thing, having to do with the gut brain barriers and imbalance on the gut microbiome.
Well, Daniele, that is one of the most important ideas in our whole conversation. The symptoms look different because the patients are at different ages and stages of life, but the other underlying patterns can be very similar and most likely are very similar. In the child, gut brain dysfunction may show up as behavioral dysregulation, poor focus, sensory issues, irritability, sleep problems, digestive issues, or difficulties settling into therapy, or school.
Mhm.
And in the adult, the same gut brain metabolic dysfunction will show up as brain fog, abdominal weight gain, food cravings, sugar cravings, fatigue,
Yeah.
poor sleep, mood changes, blood sugar instability, or quite honestly, early cognitive concerns, what they notice themselves. Different symptoms, but the same network, physiological network. The gut communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve. Okay. Immune signaling, microbial metabolites, neurotransmitter pathways, and inflammatory pathways. And when that system is disrupted, the brain and metabolism both feel it, both respond
Yeah.
to it. So the child may look like a behavioral case, the adult may look like a metabolic case, but in both, the practitioner, should ask what is happening in the gut, the immune system, the microbiome, and the metabolic signaling network. This is the clinical shift that we're talking about. And, we stop seeing isolated symptoms and start seeing patterns across many systems.
Wow. Fascinating. Yeah, it's important for practitioners. So all of you practitioners listening, yeah, this is super vital to keep in mind because things to look for and super important. Well, thanks for this clarification, John. Another question, so which is something that I actually see it also on social media when I scroll just by directly from consumer. So you have patients that on the surface they're doing everything's right. So they are eating clean, taking the supplements, doing some exercise and so forth. But yet, nothing is changing. There is this stubborn metabolism that refuses to budge. So, thinking with all the data that you and your group of scientists gather and reviewing constantly, how is a compromised gut microbiome? Each person obviously is in a different level. So, I will leave it to the compromise stage or umbrella. How is a damaged or compromised gut microbiome keep a patient brain exhausted and the body stuck in this refuse to budge stage?
Well, Daniela, this is something that many practitioners see every day. The patient says, I'm eating better, I'm taking supplements, I'm doing the work. Why am I still stuck in this mode? You know, the
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the answer really is often that the body is not just dealing with a calorie problem. It's dealing with a signaling problem from the gut to the brain. And when the microbiome is disrupted, the body becomes more inflamed, more insulin resistant, and less metabolically flexible. Now, what that means is the patient has a harder time switching from storing energy to using energy. And if you don't use energy, you don't have the same energy levels, et cetera. At the same time, inflammation and poor gut-brain signaling affect the brain. The brain's the highest energy demanding organ in our body.
Right. That's true.
And if the patient has a poor mitochondrial function, blood sugar swings, chronic immune activation, and inflammatory signaling coming from the gut, then they're going to feel mentally exhausted, even if they're technically eating healthy, and I put healthy in. When those systems begin to normalize, the patients will start to experience better energy, clearer thinking, improved digestive function, and metabolic resilience. Gut dysbiosis, which is dysfunction, is associated with inflammation and altered energy metabolism, obesity, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and cognitive effects, okay, because of the gut brain metabolic pathways, the disruption in those.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely that's a super important point because yeah, I see a lot of people frustrated. I see comment on social media that that's what they're running into all the time. Hey, what am I doing wrong? Why I'm not losing weight and so on. But yeah, super important. So again, that's great. Now let's move. I want to touch upon on a different aspect of these whole things having to do with the protocol that is being used, right, by practitioners and how our practitioners of practice are addressing this. Now, it seems that there is a bit of a gap, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because more and more people now realize that the importance and how the vital role of gut health. And while that is the case, on my line of work, I have the opportunity to look through a lot of clients or potential clients' websites and what service they're offering and so forth. And a website doesn't mean tell the whole story, but I don't see that if it is, hey, here's on our services, here what we're doing for addressing gut health, right? So, so it seems to me that there is a bit of a lack of while everyone talk about gut health, like I don't see a repeatable structure gut health strategy. So in your opinion, because I know you've been working in this field for many, many years, like most probably you and your team, you are a pioneer on this area. So in your opinion, what are the barriers to stop a practitioner to successfully implement, or why is, I mean, there is people that have offered, obviously, gut supplement and so forth, but why is this not structured protocol, right? So why that is the case and why such a approach just with supplement alone is a bit of a, you know, fall short a little bit.
Well, Daniele, traditional piecemeal supplement protocols usually fail to deliver lasting results. And the biggest barrier is that practitioners, they know the gut matters, but they don't always have a clear, repeatable framework to treat it. Many protocols become, as I said, piecemeal, a probiotic here, a digestive enzyme there, maybe a detox product, possibly a fiber product, but there's no integrated strategy. And when the patient does not improve, nobody knows whether the issue was the product, the sequence, the dosage, the patient selection, or the lack of follow through. And the second barrier is that many gut protocols are too narrow. They focus only on adding bacteria. Like if you just take a probiotic, okay, or
Yeah.
just a prebiotic, they're on, if you don't get the right probiotic, it's not going to help you. It's actually could be harmful to you. And but the gut brain metabolic system is much broader than that. You have to think about the microbiome, the gut barrier, inflammation, blood sugar regulation, mitochondrial energy, neurotransmitter support, and patient compliance. And actually, the third barrier is communication. Patients need to understand why they are doing the protocol. And if they think they're just taking, another gut supplement, compliance drops. But if
Yeah.
they understand that the gut influences energy, mood, their inflammation, their metabolism, their cognition issues, then they become more engaged. And I found that most people have to have something that's very convenient and easy, or compliance drops
Yeah.
to the floor. So you got to make it as simple for them to do it as possible. And so the traditional piecemeal protocols fail because they're not comprehensive enough, they're not structured enough, and most of the time they're not communicated clearly enough. That's why the training is so important. Practitioners, in my opinion, we all need a system where they can explain it, implement it, customize it, and then repeat it again easily on each patient that needs it.
Yeah, exactly. So that something that is easy to work with and to put into applications and implementations.
Correct. Correct.
Exactly. So on that note, I know that you and your team, I mean, I know that we don't have the time now to do a big deep dive here, but you and your team have spent like many, many years to create like a natural protocol. And then, this protocol is the what's called the Technon formula, right?
Sure.
So can you give to people listening a little bit quick explanations of what Technon is, why is this a proprietary formula, and why this product is biologically superior when it comes to repairing the gut-brain barrier and the gut microbiome?
Well, to be brief, because there's a lot we can explain about that, I'd phrase it this way. Technon's not just a probiotic. It's not just another gut health supplement. It's a gut brain metabolic support formula. And it was designed to support metabolic systems, not a system, but all the systems as they work interchangeably together at the same time. The gut microbiome, the gut barrier, metabolic signaling, inflammatory balance, mitochondrial energy, and neurological communication. And this is what makes it different. For example, most people who have a metabolic issue have mitochondrial dysfunction or degradation. Okay,
Hmm.
Tecton has in it the only patented natural, and the key word is natural, so the body recognizes the shape of the molecule, ingredient that's been clinically proven to regenerate the mitochondria. And that's
Wow.
critical in everybody with a metabolic issue. So, and that's what makes it different. Most gut products, they focus on one pathway. They add prebiotics, probiotics, or they'll add fiber, or they'll add some digestive support. Technon takes a broader approach. Based on the formula, Technon includes a substantial fiber matrix, probiotic support with bacillus coagulans, digestive enzyme support, magnesium glycinate, vitamin B6, choline, PQQ, which is the ingredient that regenerates the mitochondria, mecunopurines, Ervingia gambonesis, white kidney bean extract, antioxidant compounds, and a key ingredient that took us about 4 years to figure out, a camel milk or camel milk colostrum extract, which is different than any other product in the world. No product in the world has this. We found a specific species of camel, that the colostrum of that camel, okay, is virtually bioidentical to the colostrum in a new mother's nursing milk.
Wow, that's amazing.
The human body developed to utilize what the mother put in it while it was in the womb, and then after birth, the mother's nursing milk is what caused it to develop physically and mentally. We took that same complex of proteins that are in the camel milk colostrum, that it's bioidentical to what's in a new mother's nursing milk, and we only used the first several days of the after birth of the colostrum from that milk, and then we mix it with whole camel milk and put it together. And so it makes it a multi-pathway formula rather than a single purpose supplement. Okay, there is nothing like it in the world. Very expensive process to do. We had to create an entire way of extracting that particular colostrum. But from a biological standpoint, this matters because the gut-brain axis is not one pathway. It's an entire communication network. And you have microbial balance, immune signaling, inflammation, blood sugar, neurotransmitters, and mitochondrial energy all interacting at the same time. Now, when we talk about Technon, we're not talking about taking a probiotic and then hoping for the best. We're talking about supporting the internal terrain that allows the gut, brain, immune system, and metabolism to communicate together synergistically and more effectively. That's why I believe Technon is so important to practitioners. It gives them a unique way to approach gut health in an all systems level solution.
Yeah, no, I believe it. Like, that's amazing. I mean, there is all the right ingredients and more because, as you say, I mean, there is some ingredients that nobody else. I mean, it's not the same, obviously, done for other reason, but I see that in the supplement and wellness arena, cow colostrum is taking off like a rocket. Everyone, the latest things, So, I mean, this is amazing.
This is way above what cow colostrum is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, also it's done for different purpose. So that's amazing. Now, for all the people that are listening or is going to listen, so we are hosting because I mean this is a huge subject and is definitely we can talk a whole day here, but we thought it's super important to spend more time and training people on this subject. So for that reason, we are hosting a massive 2.5 hours live training with John and myself on the subject of gut brain health. And we have an event called the Gut Brain Health Specialist Training. This is going to happen on Saturday, May 30. So it's about 10 days from now. It's going to be on from noon p.m., obviously noon, Eastern Standard Time to 2:30 p.m. So that gives the opportunity for any West Coast people to be there and obviously all the East Coast people. But also anyone can join us. I mean, this is going to be live via Zoom, so we can have people from the UK, we can have people from Europe, Africa, Australia, New Zealand. We have some clients in New Zealand, so like everyone can join us. Now, John, talking about this upcoming event, what can I expect from walk away from a training session?
Well, practitioners are going to walk away with a completely different way of looking at gut health and what it affects in the body. It's not going to be a generic lecture on probiotics. We're actually going to show practitioners how to think through the gut-brain metabolic axis as a clinical framework. And they're going to walk away with at least 5 things. First, the science. Second, the pattern recognition. Third, the protocol. Fourth, how to implement it, the actual implementation. And fifth, the business side. You will cover the business side. And really, the goal is for every practitioner to leave with something they can use immediately. Not just information, but a practical model for helping patients by addressing upstream root causes. The science is becoming very clear. We're just bringing the science into the day and putting it in the practitioner's hand in a clear way.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, peeps, so there you have it. So, the data are clear, so fixing the microbiome. If you're not fixing the microbiome, like kind of, you're addressing the wrong problem. So we have these trainings I think is super important. I think is going to give lots of great tools to all of practitioners or anyone that is in practice, different field. It could be nutritionists, could be like speech pathologists, could be chiropractors, could be med spa that want to use nutrition on their place. I mean, it can be used in many ways. So again, this is going to be Saturday, May 30, from noon to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So gut brain health specialist training. I mean, we want you to be there. So we're going to go through, like John mentioned, we go through into the study, all the sciences behind it. I mean, as you heard, like you have 92 scientists that are searching every day on this subject. So you have the most up-to-date informations. You're going to get an easy to implement system, and also like as a bonus, like I'm going to do a whole marketing strategy practice on how to present this subject to different audience from a practice management point of view. So, well, this is going to be limited. I mean, it's going to be, I think we only have 100 seats available. So, I mean, you want to take advantage of that. The cost is $99, so we made it super affordable. We didn't want to make money as an object. We could have charged easily $500 for this training easily, but we wanted to make it super affordable for everyone. Do not get, you know, oh, it's only $99, so it doesn't have very little value. No, to the contrary, we wanted to keep it super affordable so everyone can attend and use the information to implement the data. So there you have it. So the link is here. If you watching this video as a replay, most probably it's going to be somewhere below on the information sections. Okay. And again, if you're watching this video after, we love your appreciation with thumbs ups and liking the video, subscribe to our channel. We always bring in like new wellness and practice and new protocol and new informations for free basically. And, so we like to spread the word. So there you have it. All right. So, well, John, I think that's a wrap. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you're super busy, so like I appreciate your time and thank you for all of you. I know that your time is super valuable, and so anyone that join us or watching this video later, we love your support and appreciate everything you do every day to bring wellness and holistic health to your community. Thank you very much and have a great day, and see you all of you on May 30. Okay, thank you.